Sinister Stories.
Detective Sarah Lawson had seen her fair share of gruesome crime scenes, but nothing could have prepared her for the night she was called to the old, abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town. The chilling autumn wind whispered secrets through the trees as she stepped out of her car, her flashlight cutting a path through the darkness. The mansion loomed like a forgotten relic, its decrepit facade hiding a history of horrors. Sarah's footsteps echoed in the eerie silence as she made her way through the overgrown garden and up the creaking front steps. The door hung ajar, inviting her into the abyss. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of decay and the faint echoes of long-forgotten laughter. She shone her flashlight around, revealing tattered wallpaper and dusty furniture draped in white sheets. The place had been abandoned for decades, but tonight, it held a secret more sinister than time itself. Sarah reached the grand ballroom, her heart sinking at the sight before her. Lying in the center of the room was the body of a young woman, her lifeless eyes wide with terror. The gruesome scene painted the floor in shades of crimson, a gruesome work of art in this macabre gallery. The victim's throat had been slit, the jagged wound a testament to the violence of her death. But what sent shivers down Sarah's spine were the symbols carved into the walls of the ballroom. Esoteric sigils that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. It was a scene that defied logic and explanation. Sarah had seen her fair share of homicides, but this was different. It felt like stepping into a nightmare, one where the boundaries of time and reality blurred. As she combed through the evidence, Sarah discovered a peculiar detail. The victim, Sarah soon learned, was a historian with a particular fascination for local legends and urban myths. The very subject of her studies and fascination may have been her downfall. Sarah continued to search the area and research the works laid out on the table. Her research had led her to uncover a series of unsolved murders that spanned centuries, each bearing the same gruesome signature. The patterns were uncanny. The victims, always young women, were murdered in gruesome ways, and cryptic symbols marked the crime scenes. Witnesses from different eras had described a shadowy figure lurking nearby, a sinister presence that defied explanation. Sarah's investigation led her deep into the archives, where she uncovered a chilling revelation. The earliest recorded murder, bearing the same sigils, dated back to the 17th century. It was as though the killer had been traveling through time, leaving a trail of death in their wake. Desperation gripped Sarah as she delved into the historical records, piecing together the pattern of murders that spanned generations. The killer's method remained consistent. The victims, always female, were dispatched with brutal precision, and the arcane symbols etched into the walls seemed to hint at a deeper, malevolent purpose. The next evening, as she pored over her findings late that night, Sarah's phone rang, jolting her from her research-induced stupor. It was a call she wasn't expecting, a voice that should have been impossible. "Detective Lawson," the voice said, a chilling familiarity ringing in her ears. "I see you've been busy uncovering my handiwork." Sarah's heart raced as she recognized the voice on the other end. It was that of the murder victim, the historian who had been butchered in the abandoned mansion. She recognized it by the recording the victim had left. "You can't be," Sarah stammered, her voice trembling. "You're dead." The voice on the phone chuckled darkly. "Time is a curious thing, Detective. Some would say it's not as linear as we think." Sarah's mind raced as she struggled to comprehend the impossible. The historian had been killed, her body examined by the coroner, and yet here she was, speaking to Sarah as though nothing had happened. The voice continued, revealing chilling details about the murders, details only the killer could know. They spoke of a disturbing presence, a sinister entity that had cursed them to wander through time, leaving death and chaos in its wake. "Your investigation is futile, Detective," the voice taunted. "You can't stop me, but you can join me. Embrace the poor that time can offer. Become part of the game." Sarah slammed the phone down, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and disbelief. She had stumbled onto a mystery that defied all rationality, a killer who could traverse time itself. But she was determined to unravel the truth and put an end to the terror that haunted her town. Days turned into weeks as Sarah delved deeper into the enigma. She scoured historical records, interviewed witnesses, and followed every lead, no matter how obscure. The pieces of the puzzle slowly began to fall into place, revealing a dark and twisted narrative. It seemed that the killer was not acting alone. The sinister entity that had been unleashed was a force older than time itself, a malevolent presence that thrived on chaos and death. It had possessed various individuals throughout history, compelling them to commit the heinous murders. Sarah realized that the symbols carved into the walls were part of a ritual that granted the killer the ability to transcend time and space. The victims were not random. They were chosen for their connection to the historian's research, their deaths serving as part of a dark and intricate plan. But Sarah was determined to break the cycle of death and despair. She knew that she had to confront the entity itself, no matter the risks. With the help of the historian's research, she tracked down the origins of the ritual to an ancient, hidden chamber deep beneath the town. The chamber was a place of unspeakable darkness, its walls adorned with forbidden symbols and arcane writings. As Sarah descended further into the abyss, she could feel a presence closing in around her, its ancient and hungry eyes fixated on her every move. In the heart of the chamber, Sarah confronted the entity, a swirling vortex of shadows and malevolence. It taunted her, promising her power and immortality if she would only embrace its darkness. But Sarah stood her ground. With a determination born of desperation, she discovered the meaning of symbols that were etched on the wall. In her research, a spell designed to bind the entity and sever its connection to time. All she had to do was recite the incantation of the symbols backwards. The chamber trembled as the ritual took hold, and the entity's howls of rage echoed through the ages. It fought desperately to break free, but Sarah's will was stronger. With a blinding flash of light, the entity was trapped, its dark presence vanquished. The aftermath was surreal. Time seemed to correct itself, and the town slowly returned to normalcy. The murders that had plagued the town for centuries were no more, their victims finally at rest. But Sarah knew that the entity was not truly defeated, merely contained. It lay dormant, waiting for a moment of weakness, a chance to break free once more. She had become a guardian of the town's darkest secret, a sentinel against the forces that sought to manipulate time itself. As she gazed out over the quiet town, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if she would ever truly be free of the entity's malevolence. Time was a fickle thing, and the boundaries between past, present, and future were more fragile than she had ever imagined.